I know CapEx wise, you have the few remaining Ohio dispensaries to turn online. Those are already in process. So in terms of moving forward for your capital allocation strategy, what are the opportunities? How do you line up maybe M&A opportunities against doubling the capacity of your Jackson, Ohio facility, or our buyout or our buybacks and dividends an intelligent option at your current share price? I would just love to understand how you're looking at the business going forward now that a lot of that spend is concluding.
Yeah, I think, as a board, we have to talk about it, and we formally haven't talked about this as a board of, do you do share buybacks or whatever, but, obviously any business is looking at what's the best place to deploy capital. For us, I think, a combination of continuing to reduce the debt and looking at different accretive M&A transactions and potentially buybacks or, dividends or whatever. I think those are things that you all have to consider. We just need to get our stores open and see how that's going to do it and what that's looking like and how the market's behaving. And then I think as a board, we need to sit down and start talking about, where that is in the future. But for me, I've always been an operator and looked out and thought about strategically where we position and stay in within our strategy and everything. So I've always figured, let me get the spoils before I worry about where I'm going to spend them. So that's where we're at right now.
And that's why I appreciate your mentality, Eric. I guess maybe a follow up to that, given that you have such a long history in that seat making these capital allocation decisions, how does capital allocation in this sector line up against the other sectors that you've been in? And from like an ROI perspective, is that the optimism there? Is that you still have a lot of capital deploy at what might be, higher than average ROI? Is that how you view the cannabis sector versus maybe your history in other sectors?
No, I think cannabis right now has a terrible ROI because I think a lot of the costs and stuff like that most people don't even think about their costs. So they talk about what their cash cost is. You'll see that a lot in the industry standards and stuff, and so they aren't really doing a full absorption. That's really what we did as a board when we looked at what do we want to do in Arizona. Was it made no sense to have capital deployed in Arizona when we could deploy it in Ohio more effectively. So therefore, you shut down the grow, despite how tough of a decision that is to make from a personnel standpoint. It's just not traditional at this point in time, and those are tough decisions to make, but we made those decisions and we move forward. So I think that's still part of what is a challenge in cannabis. I think the fact that the states all operate independently is a plus, but it's also an asset question. So are you able to operate uniformly across them? Are you able to scale? Are you able to do all those things? Those are all capital decisions. I think it has to be made in the industry. From our perspective, Josh, we've always focused too on infrastructure and how it's built so that we could look at things pretty transparently and pretty real time and focused on inventory turnover and that. I always grew up in industries where if you didn't turn your inventory, man, you really paid for it. So you learn that lesson early and it never leaves you. It's kind of like once you've been smacked, you don't make that mistake ever again. So we've never really made that mistake in cannabis. And I think a lot of that has to do with just that concern about inventory management.